Hi, I'm going to do a book review of Fever 1793. My name is Sharon Parsons, and this book was written by Lori Hulse Anderson in 2000. This book was absolutely amazing. It is written about a little girl named Matilda who's 14. They call her Maddie, and her family own a coffee shop in Philadelphia, and there starts to become an epidemic of the yellow fever, hence the word fever in the yellow eye. Um, this book it's it's really like it's hard to read, but it's also very easy to read. It's hard to read in the fact that you feel bad for these families, but Maddie lives with her mother and her grandfather, and they're kind of just going about existence, and she's a normal 14-year-old girl who doesn't really have a care in the world. And then a worker at her store doesn't come to work, and she kind of sets Maddie off in this like distraught tangent, and then her mom ends up getting sick as well, and her grandfather, like many of other people, flee Philadelphia to try to get away from the yellow fever. So this book I would definitely recommend. I came up with a few reasons why I think this book would be a great read or a great book to do in a literature circle. Um, well, first off, if you want to take the history aspect, we can talk about the yellow fever or about its historical context. The book Nobody Knows What's Causing the Fever at the time, and it talks about, and a lot of people give different reasons, and so that could be something you can talk about with your students about what are the reasons that the people are giving for this fever and this epidemic outbreak, because nobody knows what is actually happening. Um, this book also has a really neat organizational pattern, and it's something you can talk about with your students. It makes it very easy to read the way it's laid out. The chapters are very short, but there's a lot of them, but they are laid out chronologically. It starts from the beginning, from before there was the fever, and she's just a carefree girl working at her store, well, sort of working at the coffee house, and it goes throughout her life from the beginning to the end, and each chapter is titled with the date, and it makes it really neat, and it makes it, you can even use this book to talk about writing chronologically with your students, using it as a technique in their own writing, how to start from the beginning and you go to the end, and you kind of see the growth of Maddie too as a young girl, kind of turning into a woman. And that kind of brings me to my third reason why I think that this book is something that you should use. Um, there's a lot of issues dealt with in this book, I mean, obviously, but overall, there's a theme. Everything points back to the question about what it means to be self reliant and independent in this world. And I would say this book is a middle school level book. And as a middle schooler, what is more important to them about becoming adults, being independent, being self reliant? And it's a really neat theme for that aged child. So I don't know, I really love this book. I had actually read it before, and it was years and years ago when I was first in ed school, and I hadn't looked at it again until recently, until this last week, and I again am obsessed with it again. I just love it. Um, okay, I'm going to read a little passage from this book, and I picked a passage that shows about the yellow fever, but it also shows about a little bit of the humor that's in this book because you are dealing with a 14-year-old girl. So let me read a little bit. The only people left in Philadelphia seemed to be the shopkeepers and wharf rats. Robert had an appointment with the mayor this very day to insist that he put an end to the rumors of yellow fever. I heard a man died of the fever in the middle of the street, and 3 black crows flew out of his mouth, said Janine. Don't be vile, Janine, snapped her mother. Those filthy refugees and creatures who live in the crowded hovels by the river, they're always sick with something. But it's a gross injustice that my gala should suffer because the lower class falls ill. Don't you agree, Lucille? Mother struggled to keep the smile on her face as she changed the subject. Are your sons still in town, Pernilla? She asked. Janine's eyebrows went up and her mouth opened. Why did Mother have to be so obvious about her intent? Why don't we just hang a signboard around my neck that says, available, foul-mouthed daughter? All of my brothers are away at school, Mrs. Cook, Janine answered quickly. It's a shame they aren't here to meet you, Matilda. I'm sure you would amuse one of them. I flinched. Colette had become recently engaged to Lord Garthling's son, Janine continued. The gala was to have celebrated the engagement. Have you been courted yet, Matilda? Colette grabbed her napkin on her forehead. Mama, is it rather warm in here? So I picked this because it kind of shows what is going on, because they, at first, this is toward the beginning of the book, they're first learning about the fever, and it's a lower class thing. Those people get sick, but we don't, and it just shows they're normal people, and then it starts hitting everybody. And when she's dabbing her forehead, she's hot. It's because she's actually getting the fever. So again, this is Fever 1793 by Laurie Hulse Anderson, and I would highly recommend it. It is a excellent read. Thank you.